Hey everybody, rise and shine. I guess unless you're listening to this at nighttime, wherein if you're getting ready for bed, I am so sorry. And hopefully you have a wonderful night's sleep after listening to this incredible podcast episode that we have for you today. But it's definitely morning here. I'm like very energized, very alert and alive, and it feels good. Um, the week has been good. Come on in here, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Crafted and Carved podcast. It's episode 8. I'm Kenny, and as always, I'm so excited to be here. I am so excited to talk to you guys today about this week's episode, which I'm like sitting on the edge of my seat with so much excitement to talk about for a variety of reasons. So I cannot wait to jump in. But a couple of things before we get started. If you are new here, do not forget to like and subscribe and share if you care. On social media with friends, a loved one may need to hear this message, even if you don't feel you do. So, yes, thank you guys. Come on in. It's time to get started. Have a little chat. For the I don't know what this is, like the vibe of the week, the word of the week, because I'm definitely not preaching. We'll figure it out. But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Another thing I wanted to tell you guys, I think last week I said that I was working on a way for you guys to reach out to me that was a little bit more unified than just leaving comments underneath your podcast, whatever you're listening to this on, because it is actually very difficult for me to keep track of that stuff. Because this podcast, thank the Lord, is on so many different streaming apps. In the comment sections, I don't usually get them if they are, not on one, like a podcast streaming app that I check regularly. So I wanted to come up with something a little bit more like cool, I guess, for you guys to leave comments. But honestly, it just makes more sense for you guys to go to the IG page. We have an IG page for the podcast. It's been up and running. The podcast is at Carved Wellness. So carved, CarvedWellness. At Carved Wellness. I said that like I wasn't sure. Like I don't know if I like spelled it right. But yes, guys, please go follow us on our IG page. We post lots of inspiring content on there, obviously. That way you can also stay up to date for when a new episode is coming out. Trying to get consistent, but unfortunately sometimes we do not always get the episodes out at the same time on the same day every single time. We're aiming for Monday weekly. But if you follow the IG page, you will definitely know when an episode is being released. And also you can stay in touch with us. You can stay in touch with me. Send me a message. I want to welcome your questions because I want to address questions and ideas and thoughts on the podcast. So send me a DM. If you want to remain anonymous, just say that and I will not mention your name. But send me a DM at the Carved Wellness Instagram page. And then we can feature your question on the next episode. Okay, guys. So one more thing before we jump in, do not get mad at me. I know I've been saying that we are going to start the relationship series, but I really feel like this series that we're in, which I honestly don't know what to call it. I feel like it's the foundational series. That's kind of what I've had in my head, that this is the foundational series, which is really just for all of you to be able to feel good about where you're at within yourselves, so that you can always find your core, you can always find your balance, you can always find your rhythm before you start going and bringing in external things and external people and external relationships, relying on external relationships. It's good to do that, but before doing that, I really believe it's key to to have that foundation within yourself first. And so that's what we've been doing here. And of course, I have added 2 more episodes after this one to the foundational series before we jump into the relationship series. So we will not be jumping into the relationship series next episode. Sorry for anybody who was like, oh my God, I can't wait. um because relationships is such a hot topic. I honestly feel like so many people are covering it, that although I want to cover it, I want to make sure that I fully grasp um what I think will be valuable for you guys in that series, but also I feel like really honing in and drilling down this foundational piece is going to be much more beneficial to you anyway, because you honestly, if you go back and you listen to all 8 of these episodes and you go back and you listen to them as many times as you need to, and then the next other 2 that are coming, so we'll have 10, hopefully 10, and we'll be done. We'll have 10 full episodes in the foundational series that you guys can listen to on repeat. You can listen to, um, that should really be transformative for you and helping you to really feel that you have the ability to build a solid core for yourself. And that way you can pretty much just tap into the relationship space any way you want, but you'll be in such a good space that any hiccups, mistakes, hurdles that you encounter when trying to navigate your relationships, you should be good. I mean, obviously this stuff in this 10 episodes is, it takes longer than 10 weeks too, right? So like it's a practice, So that's why I'm like, listen to these episodes, go listen to them again, you know, really build yourself up in your spiritual life, build yourself up mentally, and just focus on that as much as you can. I know we say that all the time, but really it's so key. And once you feel really good about that, I promise you, I promise you, okay, that when it's time for you to navigate the relationship waters, you will be a completely new person. And the relationships that start to surround you and start to form and start to grow, and the ones that even start to break off, will feel so much more powerful, peaceful, and impactful than they ever have before. I promise you that. Like, I literally promise you that. I can't give you a money back guarantee because I don't think you guys pay anything to be here. But if you did, I would give you a refund. I swear I would. Okay. So that is enough of the, little housekeeping matters. Today's episode, drum roll. I am excited to talk about. It is about growth, plain and simple, right? The episode is about growth, but I want to talk today about what it means to grow into somebody unrecognizable, like somebody who is, you bloom and you blossom, and the people who are around you, the people who used to be around you, are like, who is this? I want to talk about that because I feel like we always talk about growth. This whole foundational series is essentially dedicated to the phase in your life that you're going to spend intentionally growing, okay? But this specific episode is about growing into somebody that's unrecognizable. Like, who is this person? Who is this man? Who is this woman? What happened? And so I feel that that aspect of growth is the one that we don't talk about enough, because it is probably the most challenging, painful, and difficult phase, if you will, of growth out of them all, in my opinion. Because when you're growing into somebody unrecognizable, a lot of times you end up being your own worst enemy because there's so much resistance in the beginning, or in the middle, and even in the end. Honestly, it doesn't matter where it falls, but sometimes there's resistance that comes from yourself as well. Um, Obviously, there are other people who, may be looking at you crazy and feel some type of way as well. But sometimes we stop our own selves when we are like, but this is who I've always been. And like, what? We try to cling to what's familiar. So anyway, I definitely am excited to talk about that today. I think we all aspire to grow, in general, from a general sense. We all aspire to become, and I don't want to say we all, I guess that's me being like, optimistic, because there are some people who really just don't want to grow and don't want to change. But I want to say optimistically that even in like the worst, most horrible kind of like traditional, like this is how we always done it type of person, that they aspire to grow, like even if it's just financially. You know what I mean? Everybody hopes for financial gain, maybe at the very least. Anyway, so we all aspire to grow in my mind, whether it be growing up, into from a teen to a 30-year-old, from a 30-year-old to a 60-year-old, from, aging to growing in wisdom and to growing in wealth. I think that we all aspire to grow. Like that's why we read books, and that's why anyway. Um but I do really find it difficult to believe that there are people in this world that actually genuinely want to stay stagnant or the same, even if that's what they're projecting. So even if that's you, like if you're someone who is like, oh, I'm good with it how it is, I don't know if I actually buy that. Um, you know, and the reality is, right? Even if that's your MO, we are all going to be growing no matter what because of life, and that's the process of life. Obviously, there are physical and, um, scientific aspects to growth as well. But I think that life just kind of inevitably creeps up on you sometimes, and you start to change in subtle ways based on the experiences that you encounter in life and just the different things that you go through. And you might not even realize that you're changing as well. So I feel like growth kind of naturally runs its course anyway, no matter what, even when there is resistance or pushback and blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, that is the introduction to this week's episode. I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple of different aspects. So, as you know, I love to break things down. Um, I think it makes it easier and clearer for me to understand, but hopefully for you guys too. I want to talk to you guys about what inspired me to add this episode to this to the list, and I have some personal things I want to share with you guys towards the end that I'm not always a fan of doing, but I feel like, I need to, and like why not, especially if it helps. So I want to just break down, like, kind of like into two chunks growth. Obviously there are more chunks, right, than just these two, but I'm gonna break it down between like growing up and then actual like internal growth in like certain areas and maybe external areas. But there's like the growing up, right, which is, I think we kind of would like water that down to like the aging process. um and I loved this article that I found from the Harvard Medicine magazine. It's titled "A Conversation on Aging Research" by Anne Marie Menting. And I wanted to just like read really quickly, a couple snippets from the article. I guess it's an interview with a doctor, Dr. Richard Hodes, who's the director of the National Institute on Aging. And so Dr. Hodes is defining aging, and he says there are several levels to the definition of aging. There's chronological age, which is measured by the passage of time and the changes that typically occur over time. There's physiological aging, some of which has to do with appearance, and there's functional aging. There's also what is collectively known as aging processes or processes, I think. An example of aging processes is the so-called epigenetic clock of aging, which involves changes in gene expression over time. So, look, y'all, by the end of this definition, we got way too scientific. This podcast is obviously not going to go that deep, but I definitely wanted you guys to hear this definition because I hope it helps you to understand that the process of growing up, the process of like just scientific aging is even more complex and deep than I thought. There's so many different facets. And on your own time, maybe you can start to look into the different ways that um this relates to the growth that you want to see in your own life, right? Because growing from a physiological standpoint is important. And the reason why what I'm kind of like alluding to is the rest of the article talks about healthy aging. There's a quote from the doctor that says, the goal is to improve not simply your lifespan, but what is now referred to as health span, a high quality of life throughout life. So you're not just, letting the clock dwindle down. And so he also talks about what is healthy aging, and healthy aging um, has meant and still does mean that growing older chronologically while remaining healthy without disease or disability. He says, to put it more positively, to grow older while maintaining independence and the ability to bounce back from medical, physical, or other types of stress. So it's chronological age without disease and with the maximum preservation of function. The goal is to improve not simply lifespan, but what is now referred to as health span, a high quality of life throughout life. Yes. So basically, I zoomed in on this part where he's saying the ability to bounce back from medical, physical, or other types of stress. So how in your growth are you getting involved with, and taking charge of areas of your physiological and epigenetic health? What are you learning about your family history? Do you know what types of potential underlying medical conditions are a part of your genetic makeup? Like, what are you doing to confront those things? What are you doing to, and look, this is a message for me too, you know what I'm saying? But what are you doing to ensure that you will be able to bounce back from anything that comes your way? He said medical or physical or even other types of stress, which also emphasizes the fact that medical and physical ailments are stressors on your genetic makeup, on your body, on your mental, on everything. So there is a very important key aspect that I want you guys to take away from this episode, that you're going to have to do some digging on your own, because I'm not a doctor, and because everybody is so different that there's really nothing that I can tell you from a wellness perspective, right? Other than to learn your body, understand what you are composed of and comprised of, in terms of good, bad, indifferent, and do the work, do the research, but then do the work, like literally do the work, take the supplements, do the workout routines, wake up at the right time, get the necessary amount of sleep, drink the necessary amount of water, do the meditations, do the, breathing exercises, um, which I think may also deserve an episode um on this podcast, because wellness is obviously a huge important aspect of this podcast. But I want to, when I am ready to do that episode, I want to be very clear and confident about the information that I give you, because there, I think, does need to be like that strong scientific component that really helps to inform me, but also inform you guys of what is going to be most beneficial to you. But for now, this is our growing up category for the topic of growth, and how eventually, as you craft and cater to this area of your life, you will start to look unrecognizable. I promise you. And maybe you'll look recognizable because you'll still look like you did when you were in your 20s, even when you're 50. Um, but also, guys, outside of just the health and, physiological side of things, in terms of just growing up, there are absolutely different stages that you go through in life, from childhood to adulthood. Like the fact that when you were a baby, you couldn't do anything for yourself. And now, as an adult, you have to pay your own bills. You have to drive your own car. You have to, find your own method of transportation or get your own job and your own shelter. And so there are different stages of life, things that hopefully you will be able to progress with, but not necessarily stress with, right? So things that happen in your childhood happened in your childhood. Therapy, Jesus, you know what I mean? Everything you need to deal with whatever happened in your childhood. If you have not already started doing that, you need to go and sign up yesterday to go ahead and work through some of those things, those stressors, those aspects of your childhood, your early adulthood, even depending on where you are in life, your early adult, deal with those things, okay? And now you're in adulthood. It's not separate in the sense that they're not tied together, but your childhood should not be impacting you in a negative way when you're 35. It just shouldn't. It's not meant, that's like, no, like you've been carrying stress and trauma in your heart for 30 plus years. Like that's toxic. That can kill you, I'm sure. So do what you have to do, sign up for what you need to sign up for, find the resources you need to find, and get that childhood, early adulthood trauma, heartache, devastation, frustration, stress, get that stuff under your control, because you're an adult now and you're the one who's in the driver's seat and you have to be in control of your own life. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different phases, from an aging standpoint, and growing up, like that you encounter, such as like what it feels like to be a toddler, which I don't think many of us remember. But what it feels like to be in your teen years and going through puberty and liking a boy for the first time, or riding a bike for the first time, or like getting your license for like there's so many highlights to each stage of life, and it's so important that we're taking away the important lessons of each one. Talked just a second about the trauma and the negative side of things that you want to heal and progress from and that you don't want to take with you. But there's also just the reality that there are some really important aspects of the different stages of life that you do want to take with you. Lessons from your teens, lessons from your 20s, lessons from your 30s. I don't know what those are yet, you guys. I'm not in my 30s yet. But I can say, right, what I assume from my teens is that the lesson that I learned as a teenager is that you don't know everything. And they always say that. And adults will tell you that. And you're like, what? But it's so true. Like, you don't know everything. I don't have any regrets from my teen years. And so I wouldn't do it differently. And so in terms of the lesson I learned, I feel like I did what I needed to do at that time in my life to become who I am right now. You know what I mean? Listen to your mama. Go to school. You don't know everything, and live your life to the fullest. This is the time when you'll probably be the freest in terms of expression and things like that. And so in recognizing that in my teens, those are some things I can take with me into adulthood as well. Like continue, like you were free in your teens, but take that freedom, grab hold of some of that teenage freedom, in your 20s and 30s. Grab hold of some of that, motherly wisdom from your teens in your 20s and 30s. And the same for my 20s is that I didn't know everything. I still don't know everything. There's a lot of, growing up that's going to happen, like literally growing up that's going to happen in your 20s. Like just the you don't know everything is real in your 20s, because life is going to be like, oh, you don't know? Let me show you. You better find out. Um, so anyway, I don't want to go on and on and on about the different ages and stages, but I do think that there's so much that you can take away from each phase. There's a lesson for each one, and grabbing hold to it, highlighting it, cherishing it, and allowing it to inform how you're going to show up in the next stage of life, how you're going, allowing your teens, your 20s, to help inform how you're going to show up in your 30s and your 40s, and so on and so forth, is very important, because I think you are a whole person. You are the whole sum of your experiences throughout your lifetime, and but you are in control of which ones you take with you and which ones you leave in the past. So anyway, but yeah, definitely after you leave your parents' home, life is what you make it. 20s and beyond, you kind of gotta um, really find yourself. I hate that phrase, but it's true. You really have to, I wouldn't even say find you. You need to connect with yourself. You need to really connect with who you are at your core. Um, and I wanted to drop you guys a verse, as I often do love to do. This is going to be the only verse of today, but it's a very powerful verse you probably have heard before. It comes from 1 Corinthians 13:11. It says, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I set aside childish ways. Another translation says, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. Pretty much the same verse, but that last part, I put the ways of childhood behind me. Um, so I hope that ministered to your spirit, especially some of you. Look, and when I say some of you, yes, like I feel very strongly that that is not where I'm at in this phase in my life. But don't let me fool you. I definitely was stuck for a long time in some of my childhood traumas and childhood behaviors and thought patterns, which is crazy. Just things from like, oh, we when we was in the projects and we grew up like this, and this is what, and no, like, come on, honey, like, you moved out of the projects 25 years ago. Like, why are you still operating like that is, your dynamic? You don't have to be anything that you don't want to be. Like, you literally get to be whatever you want to be. Like I said, when you move out of your parents' house, life is what you make it. It becomes a blank canvas, and it can become a blank canvas over and over and over and over again until you're no longer on this earth. Like, you literally get to wake up and choose every single day. That is literally what human autonomy is all about. Okay, so then the next category, so that, is a chunky one, but the next category is um okay, growing up, but then growing in the key areas of your life, right? Is the next category. Growing in the key areas of your life. Like, how do you experience growth in the key areas of your life? Everything is going to look different for everybody. I wrote down some key areas that are important in my life, and this may be different for you. But the areas that I think are inevitably going to grow no matter no matter what you do. This is the part where, like, even when the resistance, where there's resistance, this stuff starts to subtly grow over time. The resistance just delays it and draws it out, makes it take longer. But the key areas in life are spiritually, so within your spirituality, in your love and your relationships, so your ability to love and your ability to connect with other people in different relational aspects, your maturity, okay? And unfortunately, maturity is a swinging pendulum. Like, you can grow up or you can grow back, but it's never going to stay the same. I promise you that. Don't get it twisted. It's not one of those ones that stays stagnant. You either grow up or you grow back. You're going backwards. The other one, knowledge and experience. So obviously, because we're always experiencing new things in life, your knowledge of different things is going to increase. Um, but you can also do intentional things to increase your knowledge, like reading books, watching movies, listening to podcasts, I told y'all my voice, like when I really get, excited, the singing voice comes out. So yeah, those are the key areas that I feel like growth is constantly happening. There are some other areas that, right, that you grow in. Like you may grow as an athlete, you may grow as a writer, a runner, whatever that you put your energy into, you will grow intentionally, because that is how life works. But in these core areas, spirituality, love and relationships, maturity, knowledge and experience, I think these are the ones that are constantly forming and taking shape um, on a regular basis. I think, and I mean, spiritually is a swinging pendulum too. I mean, you can grow backwards and forwards. I mean, I guess all of these, maybe except for knowledge and experience, are a swinging pendulum. Because I mean, I don't think you can like unlearn, like you can unlearn stuff, but you can't really unlearn it. Like you're always gonna know that it is a thing or was a thing. You can maybe unlearn certain things that were miscorrect. Like you can correct things, if that makes sense. Like you can correct, problematic informings. Like, how you like heard a song and you always thought it was one lyric and then you finally Google the lyrics. You're like, what? They said that the whole time. That's what they were saying. So, yeah, you can always correct, something that was like a pillar of understanding when you were 15 and now in your 30s you're like, wait, this is what it actually was. But I do think, all of these are definitely swinging pendulums and um can go in one direction or the other, and they may be going in one direction or the other for quite some time until you really get into a solid place and space. So yeah, I feel really good about these key areas in terms of you guys knowing that it's all up to you. This is one of those episodes where like I'm giving y'all stuff, but I'm not really giving y'all a whole lot. Like I'm just talking through it with you. I want you to pay attention to these things. But it's also definitely going to be more so about like your own decisions. Um, like what are the key areas in your life that you are constantly experiencing growth in, either intentionally or unexpectedly? Things that just happen, like where you wake up and you're like, whoa, I never thought, that I would be doing this or thinking like this or feeling like this. And, I can tell you guys a couple of my own, but I'm gonna save it for later down in the end of the episode. I wanted to like quickly touch on why I even wanted to do this specific topic today, and it's because I wasn't reading it because I have the audiobook, but it is a book, so I feel like I'm reading it, but I'm not. It's being read to me. I've been listening to Michelle Obama's audiobook Becoming, which is also a print book. And it's really amazing. It has touched me in a lot of ways that have allowed me to reflect on quite a few things. And I think it's just always really like amazing to hear. I'm a Black woman and, she's a Black woman and she's a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. And it's just really incredible to hear her life journey and how she got to where she got to. Obviously, her husband is the one that became president, but behind every good man is a great woman. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not that we credit her for his presidency or his time in the White House, but it's like very easy to recognize that she's not just someone just kind of like sitting there like a wallflower. She's an incredible person. Obviously, now she's been doing more interviews, so you get to see more of her personality and who she is and the depths of her, which is even more inspiring. But even before that, she just always presented as just like a phenomenal human being. And the book is really like about her journey to self-discovery. And she talks about how like the majority of her life she kind of always thought in a certain linear way and was very structured and very like I would say she was narrow-minded, but she was very like cut and dry with what it was that she wanted and how she was going to get to where she was going to get, and she was going to do this exact thing and it was going to get her this, and these were the most important things in life, such as success and career and blah blah blah. And then when she met Barack Obama, like everything changed, because he gave her this new perspective, and it kind of pushed her to want something different out of life. She kind of expresses it as something more out of life, than just a nice job with a good paying salary and, you know, a nice title and accolades and things like that. And let me tell you, there was nothing wrong with wanting that, but it's just fascinating because, you know, she kind of talked about how she was built up to kind of be that way for so long, that when Barack Obama came into her life, she was so kind of like confused and resistant to his way of like doing things, so much so that it irked her in the very beginning stages of them, you know, knowing each other. But obviously when they started dating, it became this completely different, you know, acceptance and layer of vulnerability and understanding of, you know, his, you know, view of the world, which is really beautiful, and also tells another kind of like side story about how powerful love is. um but anyway, it was just so crazy, to me, how, you know, if it hadn't been for, not for Barack Obama, but I guess maybe also some of the other things that she had experienced in life, it was very clear to me while reading that book, right, that at that point in her life when she met him, that she was at this inevitable stage in her life where she was actually ready to receive someone as eccentric as Barack Obama, President Obama. Um, and I don't think that she would have been open or able to receive him at an earlier stage in her life in the way that she did at that stage in her life. And after she talks about some other things that she had, you know, gone through and experienced. Um, and anyway, yeah, I think she may have been like just like too uptight, you know, in her past to have even been able to receive, you know, President Obama the way that she did when they finally did meet and connect. So anyway, it just, and I haven't finished reading the book, right? But in reading it, to, you know, I'm thinking I'm gonna hear this linear story about this woman who's like super super smart, and, you know, she just really applied herself, and then she met Barack Obama, and like it was like boom, we knew that we were meant to be together because he's smart and I'm smart and we're both lawyers, and boom. But that's like not what happened at all. And it kind of just was a really refreshing reminder of the fact that we have to give ourselves space to become, you know what I mean, because we haven't become yet, like we're still growing, you know, we're still developing, so we have to give ourselves space to become what we are capable of becoming, which is why I think she titled it the way that she did, which, you know, is why I am sharing it with you, because I think it's so powerful, this book. But then also, we have to give ourselves grace for the fact that while we're still figuring it out, it may feel weird and wonky and a little bit of a roller coaster. But we will get there and it will be beautiful. And if we are not so resistant, life has a way of unfolding and growing us up, on its own, that is naturally beautiful on the other side of some of the bumps and crazy and chaos. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because that is what inspired me to do the episode. And I hope that if you're interested, you like reading, you think fondly of First Lady Michelle, that you will go check out her book. This is not an ad, you know, like I would love if I got some sort of endorsement, but I'm not. I just really think very highly of, not just her, but her transparency and boldness and willingness to share her life with us so that we can be inspired and feel good about our own, you know, circumstances. So anyway, she also has a podcast. You know, this is the only podcast I'm gonna ever plug on my own podcast. Like, how crazy is that? But she also has a podcast that's on Audible, just in case anybody wants to listen to that. That might be worth checking out too. But anyway, like I was saying, your growth is absolutely, you know, always going to bring you exactly to where you're destined to go. So like, don't be resistant. I mean, I understand resistance. I have to repeat that to myself literally every single day because I can be very stubborn. I can be very hard-headed. And just open up, take a deep breath, and hold on for the ride. Like, I'm so serious. Like, you're going to get to where you're destined to go. I promise you. Sometimes your friendship circle will get smaller. Sometimes there won't be as many people that liked you as before. But I promise you that, all of that stuff kind of breaking off of you is going to be worth it. You are being pruned and refined for something greater. Diamonds literally require pressure. Pressure makes diamonds, guys. But yeah, I also, like, not just with friends and people, but like you might even start to notice, like with First Lady Michelle, like your interests, your passions, your ideas will be different. They may shift, or they may even be in the minority, so not trendy. It's not something that everybody is doing and people are like, what is this? Read books, listen to the stories of some of the most iconic celebrities of all time. In the very beginning, everybody was like, what the heck? That's literally how it always happens. So don't be afraid to be in the minority. Don't be afraid to do something weird, different, or that doesn't seem immediately acceptable. Obviously, there are some moral, okay, boundaries and standards. This is not a free license to be out here doing crime or anything crazy, okay? But what I am saying is sometimes it is not going to be within pop culture or trending on social media, or everybody is not going to jump on your bandwagon on day one or maybe even day 101. But find your interest, your passion, and believe in it, and go with it. I think um there are some really tangible ways that you can embrace growth. And this is the part where, you're starting to turn into someone unrecognizable. You're starting to become the person that you were always meant to become. And maybe that person doesn't look like the person everybody thought it would. It maybe doesn't look like the person you thought it would. And that is okay. So I want to give you guys a few things to take with you to help you through that process of growing into somebody unrecognizable, right? We talked last week about self-love. And so that's going to be number one, self-love. Okay. Go back and listen to episode 7, self-love. You're going to need a lot of it if you don't already have it. I want you guys to really love on yourselves, and not and like I said, that's what I'm saying, go listen to the episode, because when I say that, some of you who didn't listen to the episode are going to think I'm talking about making a bubble bath or giving yourself cake and cookies when you feel sad. Like, that's not what we're talking about. I want you to accept yourself. I want you to listen to yourself. Okay. But also reflect on where you've been in life and where you presently are. So past for reflection purposes only. We are not beating ourselves up for the past, but we are using the past to reflect, and also using the present to accept. Reflect, accept. And then of course you do want to take into account where you see yourself going. Where do you see yourself going? It might not be where you end up, but what vision do you have for yourself? Okay. What is it that you see for future you? You don't need to make a 5-year, 10-year plan, but you do need to have a vision. Because you don't have vision, then what are you doing? You're kind of just wasting every single day away. What do you see future you doing in 5-10 years? No plans, but just what do you envision? What do you imagine? Allow your creativity to just blossom and bubble up, and put yourself in the ideal, beautiful picture that you want to see from 5 years from now. I feel like you have to not worry so much about how you are going to get there, once you do have a vision. But it is important to have a vision. There will need to be some plan, depending on exactly what it is. It depends on what it is, right? But don't worry about that so much. Planning is helpful. Planning is important. If you're a natural planner like myself, you overplan and then it stresses you out. So, I'm telling myself, you cannot worry so much about how you're going to get there, and you need to focus more on enjoying the ride, enjoying the journey, and embracing who you are in the present. Just take it one day at a time. Don't get too ahead of yourself. Like I was saying at the beginning of this podcast as well, guys, is that I want you to understand that as amazing as it can sound or feel, growth is not always pleasant. And so this is usually where the resistance comes in. It's not just that we're resisting because we don't like it or we like, I don't got time for that. Sometimes we resist because what we see is going to require feels too hard, too painful, and we turn back. We started down the path of growth, but now we're ready to turn around because now our friends have left us. Now our bank account is looking low. Now, we are alone and isolated. Now, the people are talking nasty towards you at your job. Honey. Woo! Let me just tell you this. You have not seen nothing yet, okay? Growth requires a little bit of toiling, pruning, and refining. Like I was just saying, pressure makes diamonds. It is not always going to be easy. Do you want to be a diamond or do you want to be a cubic zirconia? It's up to you, okay? So we are going to go through some times that are not always the most pleasant. You have to know that there will be growing pains because it is not always blissful and sunshine and rainbows out here. I don't care what so and so, I don't care what so and so is putting on social media, okay? Social media is a highlight reel. Social media is a way for people to get likes. It is a way for people to get followers and to keep up appearances. And I feel as though the is social media is good, but you also have to be careful about what you are allowing yourself to consume through those channels, because unless you're consuming something positive like this podcast and our Instagram page, follow us at Carved Wellness, um, then you may be surrounding yourself with a lot of negative representations and portrayals of reality or distorted realities that make you feel bad about yourself. And we talked about that in the self-love episode. But just be careful with what you're consuming, because that is not going to help you feel good about really nasty, yucky stages of growth. You're going to want to tap out. You're going to want to pull out. You're going to want to um call it quits. And you don't want to be too quick to do that before you actually see where it was taking you. Part of embracing growth means embracing all the different stages and phases of it, even the ones that are not ideal or like what you thought they would be. Yeah. And just you're going to have, in terms of like really knowing that you could be unrecognizable to yourself and to your family and your friends during your growth process, you're gonna have to embrace that too. Embrace the fact that you are going to more than likely, and not everybody, but more than likely, you're gonna be a different person. You're gonna be a completely different person. And not like so unrecognizable that you've lost yourself. No, we're not talking about losing yourself in a new life. But you're going to be doing things, saying things, feeling things, and or not doing things, saying things and feeling things from the past, from the before. And it is going to be strange to you. It's going to be strange to friends and family. Especially if you are the type that likes to keep up appearances and likes to kind of keep people on a surface level and out of your business, and so they don't actually really know what's going on and what you're dealing with. I am that person, and that's why I'm saying that, because people will be like, girl, what the heck, we didn't know that you was gonna stop drinking, you don't drink anymore, like what's that? But it's not so much that they're upset, but they're like, we didn't even know that you were on that type of tip to be like working on yourself and promoting wellness and promoting health, and we didn't know that that was something you were even interested in or passionate about. You don't even share that side of you with us. um you just share, the fun side, or you just share the whatever side you want to share, but maybe you just didn't share that side. And so yeah, I definitely get hit with the unrecognizable thing from friends and family a lot because of how closed off I am and to myself that I can be at times. Which honestly, if I'm being honest, makes it easy for me not to care the fact that they don't recognize, or they're like, "What? Who is this?" Because I'm like, I'm whoever I want to be, you know. And you gonna get what you gonna get, take it or leave it. But I will say though that me being like that now, that was hard. That was not always the case. And it was difficult, and I definitely lost some friendships, and rightly so, because I was going in places that they were not, and that they were not willing to go, and that they were not interested in going. And it's cool, sometimes things just die off. And that's going to be the case with friends and family. Some things just die off, or the value or the level to which they are heavily impactful and significant in your life begins to decrease, and that's okay. I promised you guys I would talk to you really briefly, as I'm kind of starting to do, about my own personal experiences and challenges with growth. Um, and so I'm going to try to do so to the best of my ability, somewhat quickly, because, it's almost over. That's why I put at the end. So I don't have to tell y'all everything. No, I'm kidding. Um, but that's definitely um, something that I feel is necessary to make sure you guys are seeing that this growth thing is not, this is not for the bird, like this is not for the faint at heart, okay? But if you commit to it and you dedicate yourself to what can be on the other side, like you will see um something really, really beautiful. And I have to tell you right now that I'm not on the other side yet. So I'm in a space right now, in a season in my life, where I know that I have been growing. The Lord has been working on me and pruning me and refining me. Pressure makes diamonds. And I've had to believe in faith, because I've seen it happen before in my life. So another transparent moment is that, like, I've gone through some really rough moments in the past and seen the beauty, in small but tangible ways on the other side of it. And so I know that that's what's happening again. And so because of that, I'm not just saying it because I really hope. No, like I'm saying because I know, right? But I'm also being honest and saying that right now, like I'm still in the middle of my growth stage. I'm still in the middle of, honing in lessons, taking things in. And I will say, in the middle of a growth time, in the middle of a difficult growth phase, the one that I'm feeling like people are looking at me crazy, right? Because I definitely think growth is ongoing. You're always growing all the time, nonstop, for the rest of your life. But this particular phase is a very difficult one. But I can see the tangible, like, facts, or I guess the tangible facts, the tangible reality that I am constantly changing, I am constantly transforming. And it is scary. Okay, it's scary for me to, like, be like, who is this girl? Like, I don't even recognize her. I don't know what to do with her, because I prayed, to be this person. I prayed to grow. I prayed to change. I prayed to step into this space of my life, but I don't recognize this person. And this is in so many different areas, which is why I'm speaking so generally. I wish I wasn't, but it's in so many areas. Like, this is, like, for example, in, like, friendships and relationships, I've had friends that I thought were gonna be my, maid of honor, and we were going to get side by side houses together. I've had friends switch up on me. I've had friends, we've fallen out, just horrible, falling outs that have hurt me to my core, hurt me more than pretty much any relationship, romantic relationship with a man, that I've been in, because, these people were people I called my sisters. And so to see those relationships come to an end, was really hard and painful. I've dealt with, even as a lawyer, I've dealt with financial instability in ways that I never imagined I would be dealing with. Because you go to law school and you work really hard and you take out student loans. Oh, Jesus. Um, and it's just, you just feel like you have set yourself up for success. You've set yourself up to win. And when these life, altering things happen to you, you feel like, not like you failed, but you feel like, okay, well, what the heck now? Like, and it sucks. It sucks. It's scary. It feels like a lot of uncertainty. Um, and I feel like I'm just trying to constantly, nail down a constant, like something that feels stable, that feels sure, that feels consistent. And the crazy part is the only thing that has been that for me in my life has been my relationship with God. Like, and I won't even say the relationship, because that's on my end. Like, that's a two-way street. And on my end, I've been wavery and shaky, but God on his end has always been so consistent, so stable, so just a firm foundation. And it has literally been such a blessing, like such a relief, um I can cast all my cares on him. And even more special has been finding my partner in the last over the last few months. It's new, but anyway, finding my partner on the last couple of months, because I've seen a similar stability, a similar firm foundation in that relationship, because of just the ways that we're going about building it and things like that. And just the beauty in the fact that I have watched myself transform from a holistic standpoint, but in so many ways, to now be able to even receive this type of relationship. I promise you, I would not have been ready to receive this type of relationship, or even God's love for that purpose, 2 years ago. I promise you. I would have been resistant. I would have been kicking and screaming. Um, um, but yeah, I am constantly changing. And who I really am at my core is what is the difficult part. Like, cause who am I? If I'm constantly changing, then who am I at my core? And so if I sometimes feel lost, I sometimes feel confused. But I feel like I have been really pushing myself to nail that down. Like I said, to nail down that constant, that consistent thing. And I'm doing it, right? And I think that that's why these last couple of episodes of the podcast have been so important to me, because as I'm sharing with you guys, how you are building, how you can build a foundational core for yourself. The reason I'm doing it is because that's literally what I've been doing with myself for these past couple of months, is establishing my firm foundation, right? Christ is my firm foundation, but now taking that, like, I'm finding my own internal firm foundation um in this earthly environment, in this earthly space. And it has definitely not been easy. It has not been something that I feel super confident about all the time. But it has been very rewarding. Day by day, like I said, like day by day, step by step, intention after intention, goal setting after goal setting, habit making after habit making. I have seen so many tangible results. And I have seen, certain difficult patches shake off of me, or be shook off of me, shaken off of me. In ways that I never felt I could be released from them in the past. Like, in the past, like, I might go into a dark state of depression because I would feel very isolated. Not necessarily because there was nobody around, but felt very isolated in what I was experiencing, and just like trying to like figure out what to do. And it would take me to a really dark place, and I would be in a really low place for a really long time. But now I'm still working on embracing those times, because that's hard, I am managing them much better. You know what I mean? I'm working on being okay with the fact that, yes, I feel sad, and that is okay. But I am managing it much better. I'm allowing myself to be sad. I'm allowing myself to feel alone, to feel isolated. I am, working on, like I said, knowing that it is okay and not just trying to shove that away with everything's good, girl, you got this, you're fine, it's gonna, yeah, you don't, you're not sad, you don't need to be sad, you're not, I'm working on filtering that voice out, which is a concept I think, at least I'm referring to as toxic positivity, which is actually the topic for next week's episode. That's a little sneak peek. I will be excited to talk about that as well next week with you guys. But yeah, just woo, it is not easy, but it has definitely gotten so much better. The days are so much brighter. The sky is bluer, the sun is shinier. And the clouds are not as gray and dark as they used to be. Um, but one thing I know that I want to leave you with is that I am constantly reminding myself of this. Um, it's not really an affirmation, but I'm going to share it with you because it's literally what I have to tell myself every single day. Is that I know that I'm headed for something rare, special, and great. I am although I'm constantly worried about the choices I make, I know that the people I allow in, the ones that I push away, the environments that I choose are all my own. Like, I got this, okay? They're all my own. And so I don't have to be worried, I guess, is the next part I should add to the end of the affirmation. Is like, although I'm constantly worried about the choices I make, I know that the people I allow in, the ones I push away, the environments I choose, they are all my own. And so I don't have to be concerned. Um, and that is a lesson I had to learn. Is like, I'm at the head of this ship and I'm gonna be good. Like, I've seen myself bounce back time and time again. I've seen myself constantly rise to the top every single time after a challenging, couple of weeks or months or whatever have you. And so I don't have to have, anxiety and fear and frustration and concern. But I think having those, like I was saying, is absolutely fair. It's fine. It's real. It's raw. You experience it and you keep going. You know what I mean? You experience the anxiety, you experience the fear, and then you keep going. So yeah, that is in a nutshell what it means to grow into someone who is unrecognizable. And I guess, trust me, guys, like the last little tidbit of my own personal story is, yes, I have had friends and family look at me and be like, girl, what are you doing and why? And who are you and what is this? But the ones that have actually, even when they've said that, the ones that are actually for me and that love me, have still fully embraced me, have had judgy moments, as humans tend to do, but have not held it against me. You know what I mean? Because it's one thing to have an opinion that feels judgy. It's another thing to judge me and treat me differently because of it. And that's what we don't do. Okay. But I absolutely love and adore my community and am constantly, thanking God for everybody who's in my life and just the space that they occupy in my heart. So shout out to y'all if anybody is listening to this. But anyway, yeah, that's just what it is. Like, make sure you have a team of good people that are around you, so when we feel like they don't recognize you, that is not actually the issue. The issue is if they now are treating you differently because of it. So that would be my one little tidbit for y'all. This has been fun. I love this. It's therapeutic to talk about some of these things, especially like my own experiences, because like I said, I usually am very closed off. um but it's also therapeutic to know that hopefully in me sharing these things, sharing these experiences, but also just opening up the discussion and having these discussions with y'all, that it may actually be the thing that I needed when I was going through it, but like now you have it, and now the next person has it. So yeah, definitely guys, go and do some journaling as I always want y'all to do. But if you don't, that's cool too. But go and do some reflecting, some thinking. Um, take some time to yourself. Re-listen to this episode if you need to while you're journaling, while you're reflecting, and really challenge yourself. Challenge yourself in some areas that you want to see some real growth in. And I promise you, you are going to love the new you. I swear you will. You should love the you that you are now, too, though. Okay, that was last week's episode, self love. But I promise you, you are going to love the new you. You're going to be absolutely obsessed. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I love you so much. I really, really do from the bottom of my heart. And I cannot wait for you guys to come back next week for episode 9. I can't believe we're already on episode 9. It feels so crazy, but this is so fun. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, y'all, please go and subscribe and share the podcast. But please go and follow us on Instagram at Carved Wellness on Instagram and send me a DM. I want to hear some stories from you. I want you guys to ask me some questions because I want to, feature some people on the podcast. I'll shout you out if you want to be shouted out. It's also a great way to connect with me. I think the next phase is that I want to start doing some interviews and things like that. So that's going to be in the works soon. But until then, guys, stay tuned. I love you. Have an amazing rest of your week and just love on yourselves, love on everybody else around you. Okay, bye.